Welcome, my name is Brian Odiambo and this is Top Touch Media. Make sure you subscribe before anything else. And today we are here with Gichangi Gitonga, one of the people, student leaders who attracted the attention of media in one of the city halls events which was taking place in Nairobi. Gichangi Gitonga, starting by your name, or which way would you like to tell your brief background?
In the wisdom of the comrades, an impotent man has no right advising couples. My name is Gichangi Gitonga. I am the JCOT Secretary General, and thank you very much to Top Notch in association for Grapevine for this opportunity.
Welcome for that. So going directly to the point, how did it feel making a hot air for the President of the Republic of Kenya?
It never felt like anything, because in the first place I got to that position in order to defend my people. I got to that position in order to ensure that my people never suffer. I got to that position because I've suffered myself. So it was not more of making myself known to the public, it was more of doing what my people want me to do.
And you talked about your people impeaching you in case you didn't represent them well. Did they feel confident about representation that you did?
Okay, for one, the impeachment part was a bit of an overstatement, but I just wanted it to be a bit clear that the people are tired of hypocritical leadership, of selfish leadership. The people want people who will stand for them. And yes, I've gotten quite a couple of compliments from my people. I'm glad that my people are happy, and that is all that matters.
Right, so during one of the City Hall events that took place in Mombasa, the President of the Republic of Kenya, Dr. William Samuel Ruto, made a statement saying that he will invite the university student leaders. Has that taken place?
I think what he meant is that he would hold a town hall, and that he did at KICC. So I do not understand the man very much, but I think that was done.
So in your own perspective of view, the president have never invited the student leaders in State House maybe to have a word with them?
For one, and it's something that my people have said, and it's something that I'm coming to believe to some extent. We have a leader who advises his advisors, which is a bit unfortunate. And if it's a bit hard for him to listen to his own permanent or principal secretaries, I wonder where the student leaders lie in that chain. So
given a chance, would you mind going to the State House to raise your issues with the president?
I've actually been there, and that is one thing that made me tell the president what I did, because I've listened to him quite a couple of times. I don't know if the listening was mutual, but I have been there, I have listened to principal secretaries, and yes, if I get a chance to go to these places, I will, but you know, at some point you just get tired once you feel like you're not being listened to much. So I have actually been there to answer your question.
Okay. During that time, you mentioned about someone, if I may recall well, maybe you talked about someone saying, or someone claiming to be representing you as a student in universities. What would you say about it?
I will not comment much about it, because the student leaders, that is something that we usually know as student leaders, that we have people who have been our representatives for 11 years. But when you are still in primary, somebody was the leader of student leaders. So it's a bit ironical to have your father represent you in a student leaders forum. And the man knows himself, he was just out of the meeting once the cameras were off. So we are glad we achieved what we set to achieve as student leaders.
And do you think this can work minus having a representative?
Sometimes it's hard, but you know, once you realize that the person you sent to represent you is not very much helpful, it is usually better to even do some things alone, as we might even do today. But I believe that we will elect another leader soon as student leaders, and so that issue will be sorted.
So currently you can confirm that the students doesn't have any representative.
We do not have any chairperson of any student leaders organization that the student leaders recognize.
Okay, so there's been this, of course you are Gen Z and you understand university students, most of the people who made their ways into the streets are just this young generation Z which are in universities. So there are these young activists, one of them is Kasamuel Makure, if I have pronounced that name well. So Kasamuel Makura, there is someone who just came in and criticized what he had been doing. In your own perspective, do you think what that gentleman is doing is right? And what would you like to tell those who are criticizing him?
I cannot comment much on Kasmuel. He's his own brand and he has his own purpose. Kasmuel, for one, is not a student. He's more of part of the older Gen Z. And so it depends on where you look at it from. So I will abstain from commenting much about Kasmuel.
Okay, would you like to have some characters like the one for him?
To have?
Like, would you like to be like you come in the public the way Kasamuel Mukure is doing? Would you like to be such type of person?
Personally, I'm kind of introverted. I'm a bit media shy, and so I don't think we can hold the same niche as Kasmuel.
Okay, on the same issue, there's this guy called Kabaso. Have you heard about Kabaso? And he have been complaining that the president is one of the people who are criticizing the government right now. And the other day he said that he was offered job, though there was no substantiability of the information. So in your own view, would you see someone like Kabaso being a leader for to represent the student leaders and student universities or fight corruption?
I believe that Kabaso is also his own brand. I do not know much about him. I have not done much research. So actually commenting about him, he was not there during the initial protests. He has come later, unlike Kasmuel. So I don't know enough about Kabaso to comment about him.
Okay, so there is during the city hall event, you talked about the Senate of Kiambu County, and you mentioned that the dwelling will replace him. What did you mean by that statement?
Of course, it was on a light note, and actually he's one of the people I had been very vocal about this issue of consolidation of bursaries, and it's something that I would want to achieve. So by saying that I will replace him, God willing, will become the next Kiambu senator, and all by God's grace.
Right, so does it mean that in 2027 you are eyeing for a seat in
I will abstain from giving the exact dates, but yes, at some point in my life I will be.
Okay, and about the CDF, just that you mentioned it, you talked about the abolishment of CDF. Do you think these funds are not used for the purpose they're meant for?
It's not about thinking, it's about facts.
Okay.
And having done proper research, I've come to believe that most of the people who vie to go to be parliamentarians actually vie because of these things. They spend their money knowing very well that there's somewhere they will recover it. And by recovering it, we get corruption birthed. That is the maternity bed on which corruption is born. And so it will be quite good to see how many people would want to buy without having these funds under them. Because if somebody is genuine enough, they will not buy because of the money that is there. They will buy to represent their people. So, yes.
Okay, so you think that it should be abolished and done with it immediately?
Actually, it has been tried before. The only issue is that the people who are supposed to pass it are the ones who own it. And so I stand for the abolishment of it. I stand for, not the abolishment, sorry, but the consolidation of all these bursaries. You find even in some places the chief can offer you a bursary. You find in some places the PA to the MP can offer you a bursary. You find in some places the aunt to the governor can offer you a bursary. So we have too much power in the hands of too few men or women. And so it should actually be done so that we can see whether the education will be subsidized, whether the new funding model, because the biggest complaint is that universities were in debt. If these monies were directed to a certain pool, we would have a lot of changes in our country. So I'm not for the abolishment, but I'm for the consolidation of them.
All right. So there have been these, initially, the Gen Zs, the Generation Z. Actually, I'm speaking about the Generation Z because they are also part of universities. So the Gen Zs were on the streets. They were calling for accountability in the government. They were calling the end of corruption in the government. And a few days after, some of the individuals who were in opposition party joined the government. And to be clear, PK Selassie made it on social media that if not Baba who confused the Gen Zs, then it would have been something else. Do you think those people who are in opposition leader getting the government confused your ideologies?
I don't think that most of the Gen Zs regard them much. I believe that we are getting to a point where most of these people will be irrelevant or obsolete, because looking at the politics that are usually at play, it has been very easy for the government to pacify any demonstrations by calling one man. And this time it never happened, because the only thing that happened is that at some point we kind of felt that much of what we had set out to do was achieved, and also most of the times we demonstrated were not being funded. And so it's also about the economy, and I can assure you if the Gen Zs were a bit more empowered, we will not be having a government right now.
So what made them to stop the process of, what made the Gen Zs in their own perspective to stop the process of demonstration? Does it mean that at some point their points were met?
Some of them were met. Actually, the first thing that was met was the finance bill, and if you have been a keen student of current affairs, you should be knowing that the finance bill was the biggest cause of the protest at first. And so once that was met, we went to the disbandment of the cabinet. There was the hashtag Ruto must go, but a lot of division came at that, because we tried to find somebody fit enough to replace him. And as much as we do not love much of what he is doing, and the Gen Zs do not enjoy much of it, we also need Gen Zs who can stand in his place. And as things stand, it might be a bit hard to trace such a person, but in the near future, and I can assure you in 2027, we will not lack somebody under the age of 35 going for president.
Okay, so in your own view, do you think that at some point some of the opposition leaders or one of them saying that Raila Odinga or opposition side allowing some of their members to be in the government, and at the same time there's a new leader, opposition leader, to say Raila Odinga is planning to vie for the African Union chair? What influence do you think that those people getting into the government have in relation to this Kenyan politics?
I cannot comment
in a perspective that you say that one day, one time, you wish to be a senator. So I think at some view, politically, you can oversee.
I also believe that we have been too much caged in the old politics. There's the second president of this country said that Kanu will rule for 100 years. But unfortunately, I feel that the oracle he was using has been weakened. And in some time, you'll come to realize that the old grade of politicians will just die down. Because what they usually do is money and money and money. And In 2027, we'll have a lot of Gen Zs going to take their money. That is something that cannot be denied. But you see, the issue of the opposition is that the president himself said that the opposition has been replaced. He said that others should now join the opposition, and I believe that he might have been doing it jokingly, but soon enough we will have a leaderless opposition, and which is the biggest fear of any government. They fear a place where they cannot control, they fear a place that they do not have much say over. And so over the opposition, I believe that we are even speaking of old things, we are speaking of bygones, and we should let them be bygones. So the opposition has made it clear that they are there to use the youth, that they are there to ensure that they get to government after destroying the country. And you see, after some time, we are also not foolish. We do observe, we do see, we do hear, and at some point we will act.
Okay, in the performance of the government, there are some, or there are various sectors. There is education sector, there is road transportation sector, there is industrial sector. Which sector do you think is performing better, and which one do you think is underperforming?
I believe that actually some of the sectors you've mentioned have been recently replaced, and so when the president came into power, he had given a lot of promises, and so for one to judge his performance, we will also judge it against his promises, and in so doing we will realize that it is like trying to mix oil and water, and I have never seen anyone confessing to have done that, even in the science experiments, unless you do a lot of chemical things. And so over the sectors performed, I believe that the treasury, which is one of the key sectors in any economy, has recently been handed over to the opposition, and now it will be a bit tricky to define whether we say that he's the one who is doing it or it's the opposition. But again, I will commend him on the maritime part. I commend the president on the maritime part. He has done a lot in that sector. Not what he promised, but there's some changes because I've been to coast sometimes, and he has made a few steps to improve that area. There is also the agricultural sector, which has been marred by very serious issues. The advantage we also have in the agricultural sector is that the man himself is a farmer. Though now the issue with him is that it's a bit hard to trust him. So I think that the one that I will say without much fear of contradiction that he has performed well is the maritime sector.
And the performance?
The performance, the economy.
The economy.
The economy, which sector is that? The treasury. The treasury in itself and the central bank, all these areas that deal with the economy. I recently saw a meme of a cartoon called IMF and another one called Kenya. This cartoon comes with, the IMF cartoon comes with one, the Kenyan cartoon has one crutch, the things that people do not walk well used to walk. And once this IMF cartoon gives the IMF crutch to the Kenyan cartoon, he lives with a leg, and that is probably much of what has happened to the economy. And so the economy is the worst performed area.
So you're trying to mean that the IMF thing is just to, at some point, because you said it's leaving the cartoon without the legs, giving out a scratch, right? Mm-hmm. So are you trying to say that they are up to something from Kenyans?
I will not rush to say that because I'm a financial engineer and I do not deal much in conspiracy theories. But what I can say is that some of the policies they impose on us are very questionable. I have a country like the US having a $35 trillion debt, and these policies are not imposed on them. They say that we have a lot of debt, so we need to raise these things and do that, but they do not do those things in their countries. These people are the same ones who will come to discourage us against China. The US will come to discourage us against countries like China. When you find the US owes China $1 trillion in debt, And so I believe that as Africans, we need to arise. We need to stop being pawns on this chessboard of the world. We need to stop being the ones who are used whenever somebody wants to put forward their diabolic agenda. And so over the issue of the IMF, I will not rush to comment, but I will just say that a lot of the policies, or some of the policies that they impose on us, are very, very questionable.
But in relation to what you say about the scratches, anyway, that is about the way.
Over the cartoon, I just said that I saw that cartoon somewhere. I love the cartoons because they usually bring some messages out. It was probably that person's perspective, but the cartoon was on somebody's status. So over its veracity, I will not rush to comment, but I would love the audience to think about the same.
I saw that you talked about the dates of different countries. Which is the best perspective way, or which methodology should they use so that we can come up with a good funding model for our dates, so that we can clear the dates as a young generation? Would you support the imposition of taxes? What would you support as a young youthful leader?
As a young youthful leader, I will support us taking things slowly. I would suggest to the government, and I have suggested not once, but severally, that the government stop rushing things. Because one of the things that the president has done is he wants to do a lot in a very short time, and he's not dealing with the moral implications, the social aspects of it. And so we would want the president to not rush things. He does have a lot of good policies, but some of these policies are very rushed. Others are very bad, and they are equally rushed. So for the issue of the new funding model, the model in itself, as a financial engineer, I will not complain much about the model.
Why?
The model has the basis of the model is it has been researched well. You have gone through the model. The model as it stands, the new funding model, put in a certain shelf and written in a certain book is not bad. But once you come to the ground trying to implement it, you find a lot of issues, and it's something I've been vocal on. Something I've been very vocal on over the issue of the model being rushed. You see, such a model is not something that you'll take 1 year to implement.
And about the new funding model that is being used by the government, what are some of the bold steps that you said, so that you said this funding model, they should have done a lot of research before rushing onto it? What are some of the bold steps that the government should do to ensure that it works best?
I think the boldest one is to stop it. The boldest move, or the only move that the government will have soon enough, is to take the model very slowly and actually not use it in the next years, in the people that shall be admitted next year. Because we cannot be having all these issues. We have complaints. Yes, we do not disagree that we have people who will just fight the government for no apparent reason. But you see, it's very hard to fight something that is not bad. It's very hard to fight something that has no issue. You cannot, for example, say that you're not wearing a sweater. It will seem very foolish. We cannot say that we are not doing an interview. It will be very foolish. But we cannot, we need the government to slow things down. And by slowing it down, I will not exactly use the word reject, but I will just tell them to slow it down and do a better pilot program. It's something that I've suggested to officials in the Ministry of Education, something that I've suggested to the president himself. You are a witness. I asked him why the rush. And so the biggest thing that the government should do is to first retreat for some time, check what has happened in these 2 years, and check the issues that have been there. If there are students who are really suffering, they should check whether the students are suffering because they feel the wrong information or because of system glitches. Because admitting 134,000 students, and right now I believe it's around 250,000 students who are under the new funding model, is a bit, it makes things a bit hard for the government to deal with all these issues. And then they already have a backlog, and you know how our government works. It rarely finishes what it starts, and we have seen exposures of such projects. And so the government should first sit down and ask itself, how many of the students are being hurt by the new funding model? Why are they being hurt? What can we adjust about this? And so I believe And it's something that I will always say until God willing it happens, or I'll be taken out of this place, that the government should slow down the new funding model, that they should first stop it and analyze what has the progress over the 250,000, that we do not leave some people behind, because from such issues, that is where we find people saying that the government wants to finish or to reduce the number of people studying in universities, because we have a lot of people in the market, in the job market, but we have very few jobs. So it's very easy for somebody to believe that the government is trying to sabotage education. So the government should try to, or should not even try, the government should stop the new funding model.
And after stopping, which one would you suggest that they should use?
The differentiated unit costing, which is the one I am under.
So you're satisfied with the one you're using currently?
I'm not entirely satisfied with it, because also, being honest, because I've said that I've been to these forums and I've listened, the rationale behind the new funding model is to save the campuses. And also, as a financial engineer, I've gone through the data myself. I don't like getting second-hand information or processed information. I believe I'm in university to use the school fee that my parents or myself pay. And so the new funding model in itself, once again, has no issues. But you cannot rush something of that magnitude and expect to have no challenges, and expect to have no catastrophic challenges. And so the differentiated unit costing, the DUC, which is the one I am under and most of the student leaders are under, was not the best model, because it was a model of promises. It was a model that the campuses were promised that they will be paid 80%. Well, in essence, the highest amount that the government has ever disbursed to any campus is 67%. And so, actually, even at some points, the government has only given campuses 23%. Listening to most of these administrations, you will realize that they do love the new funding model. The new funding model is actually here to save the campuses, but now the issue is the students are left out. And so I would want the government to first take a step back and observe, and for next year use the differentiated unit costing as they try to adjust these issues, because the issues that were complained about last year, some of them have been improved, but in as much as it's a work in progress, we will have a lot of people not going to campuses. We will have a lot of people differing from campuses, indefinitely differing because of a model that is not well understood, because the government also has made a mistake of not educating people. They have something called hypselomophobia, which is the fear of high fee. So we need the government to first stop the model in the meantime and try to listen to the issues and resolve them. If they will be able to resolve those issues before the next phase is rolled out, the people who are currently in Form 4 join campus, then well and good. But if they are not able, which I believe will be the most probable case, which I believe will be the case that will happen, we need the government to first take a step back and ensure that we do not lose a generation because of something that is not well understood.
So on the first point, the new funding model, it should be stopped, and then the one you're using for the continuing the third years and above using, it's not also satisfying your expectations. So I think at some points government might sit down and start asking you as a student that which one do you think can fit you, in which way would you think that if we do it, it will be best for you, because the first one should be stopped, the second one, it is not satisfying your needs. So which one would you think they should choose?
I'll give you a comment that is used the world over. The world does not exist in the black or the white, it exists in the grey. So it is not about polarizing, it's not a yes or no question, it's about what will work, and what will work for Kenyans and for the generations that are to come. And so I believe that these synergies should be combined, that the DUC and the new funding model do have some good aspects in each and every one of them. The DUC benefits the students. The new funding model benefits the administration. We cannot use a model that benefits the administration only, because who are we taking to the campuses? And we cannot also use a model that benefits the students while closing down campuses, because also looking at the data, most of the campuses were getting closed or getting shut down. We have seen most of these deaths. We do have a lot of issues with our campuses, but the capitation of some of these funds does not happen, and so the campuses get hurt. So to answer your question, it's not a yes or no question. It's not a black and white. It's an issue of the gray. We need to have a common ground where both the administration and the students benefit. And so if the government were to ask and to listen and to implement, because those are three very different issues, I will tell them that the differentiated unit costing benefits the students. You can hear the lecturers striking right now in JKUAT. I believe you hear them blowing those trumpets.
Of course.
It might be it's actually to some extent a result of the DUC, to some extent, because I've also been vocal about the corruption that happens in our country. You find that some of these monies just get lost along the way. But also, we cannot use the new funding model to hurt the students. And so a combination of synergies should happen, and we will be having a town hall today here in JKUAT. And I would also want to listen to students, because that is what I majorly do. Most of what I speak, I listen to my people. I do have my opinions, but I listen to them, and I will also want to listen what they will tell the newsrooms today.
Are they allowed to get in today?
We had actually released a memo. We, as student leaders, and also trying to find out, most students did not know what was happening or what is happening. And so at first we backed out because we might be pawns in this game of chess. So for now, over today's town hall, I will be there. I was really considering not coming because I did not understand what is going on. At some point, we are just being told that JKUAT will be used for a venue, which is very unfair for someone somewhere to decide to use JKUAT as a venue and not involve the students. As JKUAT, the students are the one who made JKUAT to be known in the country. The students are the ones who made JKUAT to get that attention that it got. And so it will be very unfair for the students not to be involved in something that they should be, in a discussion, and not just students of JKUAT. Because yes, there will be students, but we have seen a lot of censoring. The training that we had at KICC, I realized that there are people who have been chosen to kind of speak. And so we do have a lot of control in the media, and at some point one of the newsrooms stopped broadcasting the event that was going on live. You are all witnesses. And so for today, I would want to invite each and every JKUAT student that as long as you are a student of JKUAT, come to that event. It will be in our school, and so you are all welcome. I will be there, and I will be representing my people. There is a memo that we had released distancing ourselves as JKUSA from the event because there was not enough information provided over the same. But as things have gone, even after the release of the memo, a lot of considerations have been met, and I'm as of yet to confirm whether it is at the Assembly Hall or at the ICAD, but as long as it will be in JKUAT students are invited. Thank you.
So about the involvement of JKUAT, we talked about the attention of the country, which might be true at some extent. So do you think this is something being done on purpose, so that you talked about the attention that was attracted due to the publics? Do you think it is something being used for a purpose, or it is just used in a mindful way? And also you talked about the people or students, those who are going to speak, they are being chosen. How is this possible?
No, never say that. I refer to the town hall example.
The town hall example, yes, you referred about it, but you said that those who are going to speak, are they pre-chosen before the event?
One, I cannot comment much about today's event.
The one on the town hall?
In the town hall, because the issue that made us believe that some of these students were chosen is that some people were told to speak without even lifting their hands, and I was actually not to speak. The comrades I was with, my friends who were around with, and I would like to thank people like Boaz Ochola, people like Sam Professor, and all those that we were seated with, because they are the ones who realized that there is a certain game being played here. And so by them raising their voices, we were heard and we were allowed to speak. freely. So we would also want today's event to be open. We would want today's event not to be censored, because unfortunately we will not want this to be the case, but JKUAT has not made any resolutions over the new funding model as of yet, and so we will be there and we will be listening and we will speak. We cannot be in our own territory and be shut up. So JKUAT students, come out in large numbers. You are welcome.
And then maybe to touch on things to do with JKUAT right now as an institution itself. So there's been an issue of these bursaries being offered to the students. Of course, these are not my views, but I always get them from students themselves. So they always say that for someone to get a bursary in JKUSA, it is a game that you need to know someone, or some are even saying that they're buying them. How will you respond to that?
Over that, I would want us to have an interview, a very open interview with both the president and the vice chair, because in as much as I'm an executive, there are constitutional rules, so I will not want to overstep. I also have heard a lot which I will not want to preempt.
Are you the Secretary General?
I am the Secretary General, but there's also, it's like asking the Chief Justice why Gen Zs are demonstrating. There's something called Division of Labor and Specializations. I am not in the bursary committee. The bursary committee has the chairperson, the vice chairperson, and other selected members of the...
What are the roles of Secretary General?
I have 11 roles according to the constitution, and if we had much time I will open my phone and read them to you. But one of the biggest roles of the Secretary General, one of the biggest unwritten roles of the Secretary General, or one of the roles that I play, and it's actually the first one or the third one in the constitution, is about safeguarding the student center, being in charge of the assets. I also have the role of ensuring that I'm a signatory, that no monies are removed from JKUSA without my signature.
So bursaries are part of the resources that are owned by the students. So how comes you saying that you won't speak about it?
No, I've not said I won't speak about it. I've said that I cannot...
You can't
go too much. I cannot, because I have my personal views. I have heard a lot, and the issue with these bursaries is that there are some people who politicize them. I have received complaints of people who do not get bursaries because they do not support so and so. And so before I rush to speak over such issues, I believe that it will be prudent, because the bursaries issue, and I also believe you should have mentioned the sale of hostels.
Yeah, it's also
issues. So such are the issues that we need to discuss as an executive, because my views enough are not enough. My just telling you that this and this happens are not enough. I believe that as the media, we should also have a sit down with the people in charge of these dockets. I would also not want to be the one who criticizes the president for advising his advisors, and then also be the one who oversteps in their role. And so over the issue of the bursaries, and also over the sale of hostel issues, that is something that I'm actually following up on, and I will be releasing a memo either today or tomorrow, giving people the channels via which to communicate. I have personally not sold a hostel to anyone, so I will not be guilty of going out there and asking for these names. And so we need to have a robust conversation, having all the people involved on board.
And in the docket where you are, of course you are the Secretary General, you oversee everything. Almost most of the things must pass through your hands. So there's this issue where when someone tries to hold the officers of the JKUSA accountable, there are some forces behind which are trying to sabotage that. What will you compliment about that?
I've actually never tried to fight anyone who has opposed me. I released a memo yesterday. I've received a lot of backlash. You can ask anyone who has abused me. Some of the people actually go overboard. I've never taken anyone to a police station. I have never taken anyone to the administration for even abusing me, because some of these people are not holding you accountable. Some of them are enraged because you are there in the first place. I have a mentor who once told me that if you want to be loved by people, choose comedy and not leadership. Leadership is not easy, but something I just want also to advise my fellow leaders, do not try to sabotage people who hold you accountable, but it should also be done in a respectable manner, because some people usually cross some lines. So I have heard people even abusing me, and you might have even seen that as the media, but I have never personally, because I will answer that question from a personal perspective before I come to compliment over others. I have never taken anyone to the administration for abusing me. I've never taken anyone to the administration for saying my office is doing so and so, it's doing this and that. I've never done any of these things because I was also somebody who was holding those who preceded me accountable. So also over those probably doing such things, one, I would advise anyone who is holding somebody accountable to hold facts, because we do not all have the same personalities. I will probably just let it slide because I have a lot on my mind, but there is somebody else who will take it very personally. So if you are going to attack, ensure that you have points, but if you are also attacked, do not take it to some levels, because you are here to represent students.
Do you believe on the agendas of your head, that is the president of Jaikusa?
The agendas
of Wandiga.
Which, like, agendas in what?
Like, before getting to the office, I think maybe, and I'm sure you have sat down, you have an executive meeting with him, and he has informed you about some of the agendas or some of the ambitions that he wants for JKUAT. So are you part of it?
For one, when I was looking for my seat, we were not in the same political camp. I was actually in one's political camp. So most of his manifestos, or most of what he was promising at that time, were never together. But once we got into office, something I'll tell you is that we have a smart president. We have a president who thinks. We do not have a pushover in to put it in those words. And so the president does have a plan. I also have things I do. And so what the president does have, the president has a plan, that I can assure you. The president has concerns of the comrades at heart, and so I will not put any weight behind anyone, but I can assure you that we have a smart president.
And you believe in the agendas, right? If you believe that the president is smart, so you're also helping him to help.
There are agendas that we must work together, because it's not about the president, it's about the people.
Agendas that you offer.
It's not just about what the president has, it's about the agendas that are going to benefit the students. So any agenda that the president has that will benefit the students, I support fully, as long as the agenda will be there to benefit the comrades.
There's been this agenda of, I think, my first time when I did an interview with the president, Wandiga, and people have been asking about this. That is why I'm raising these concerns. There was a time I had an interview with Wandiga, and Wandiga, the president, talked about the Fungua Roho initiative, something of the sort. How is it working? Is it proceeding well, or it was just a matter of adding a taste and a flavor for consumption?
No, for one, I saw people going to him. I have actually seen people going to speak to him. He has shown us some of the chats on his phone. So as long as he provided a means of communication, it was actually a very good initiative. It was something that helped at some point. And so over the Fungua Roho initiative, I have seen students come to him. I will not rush to comment much about it, but I can assure you that there are people who have come to speak to him, and he has actually listened to them.
And you also know that speaking without action is nothing.
For one, I cannot be there entirely to listen to what promises he gave or what he told he will do. So I cannot say that he took action or not. But some of these people, most of the people who are a bit suicidal, are not people who need money entirely. There are people who have gotten to a point that they believe, because most of us comrades sleep without lunch. Most of us comrades are very poor. But not every comrade who is poor kills themselves. It's not that it is not that every comrade who is hungry is suicidal. some of these issues are just a matter of listening. They just want to sit down with somebody who will listen. And so by listening, some of these problems are resolved. But I am not usually there because there's also the issue of confidentiality. As they are speaking, I cannot sit there with them. Unless somebody has come to me, I cannot go to sit there and listen to what is being told. But most of the people who are suicidal, and it's something that I've personally observed, it's not about money entirely. It's not about food. It's not about school fees. Because there are a lot of people who have not paid school fees but they deferred. But it's about somebody who has gotten to a point of feeling like nobody listens, nobody cares about me. So when somebody opens up their heart, the Westmen say that a problem shared is half solved. So some of these problems are usually solved half or entirely by just listening. Over what is done after that, I cannot rush to comment because I will not sit there to listen to exactly what has been given.
So about communications, you see, but about actions, you can't rush into.
No, it's not about trust. And you see, one issue about the media is that they like taking things out of context. And
No,
so listening to the whole context I've given you, I have told you that some of these people who are suicidal just need somebody to listen. And once I see somebody who has gone to that office and they have told the president, I have a certain issue, respectfully, I will step out. And whatever they will speak in that room remains between them. Because you cannot also be having issues, and one of the issues probably that person has had is betrayal, or they told somebody something and it leaked. I cannot be there to sit down to somebody who has been hurt before. So over the promises given, which I have never heard of any, I cannot comment that something like this and this was done. And so I will not want that to be taken out of context, saying that the president does not do what he says. I will just want it to be known that I do not know what the president says in the first place to people who have come to open their hearts to him.
But to make myself clear, I think I will not say that he's not doing or taking the promises in action. But what you observe, because you're in the docket of Secretary General, I hope most of the information from Gikusa, most of them pass through your hand.
But also so this is not the average information. This is not like the financial records of Jaikusa. This is a very intricate affair. This is a very grave affair. This is about a life. It's about somebody who has, because the Fungua Roho initiative, yes, there's something I can assure you, the president cannot feed this entire school. So if even 100 people come to him complaining about lunch, probably it might not be doable. But if somebody just wants somebody to listen, I have seen people who have gotten into that office and spent more than an hour with him, and they were in that office, they were just discussing things. And so over the issue of doing what he says, I do not know even what he says in the first place when it comes to the Fungua Roho initiative, because that is the question you asked.
The communications, you say that you've seen people communicating about the same thing. So right now, you doesn't know right now what is going on about the communications.
We've also been on a long holiday break. We've been in a semester where most people have been at home. And so the Fungua Roho initiative, what it's launching, because I remember that was the time we had lost Milwaukee, and it was one of the most saddening affairs. At that time I was living in Hall 6. And I remember being with the parent during that entire time. It was a very devastating time for Jaikusa, because the parent had come there because the child had said that they were to kill themselves. And the child killed themselves when the parent was still there. And so it was something that even made us as Jaikusa get to a point of desolation, as in we were crestfallen, trying to figure out what is this that this student could not have told us and not the parent. So some of these issues are just about listening from the word go. And so over him listening, I have seen people go into that office and speaking to him and them having a conversation. And during that time I've ever left to do some other stuff, or I was in my office. So over what is promised, I do not know what is promised in the first place for somebody who has gone to open their hearts.
So about the communications, it is there.
Yes, the communication is there.
But about the actions, he doesn't have idea.
And specifically on the Fungua Roho initiative, I do not know what is usually discussed in that room. So I cannot say that this was done, not even knowing what was said in the first place.
Is it part of the agendas that maybe you discussed with the president, or it is a personal agenda that is being done?
I think that is something that is very personal to him. The Fungua Roho initiative, we also do listen as other executives, but it is the president's initiative. It is something that he has in his heart. So I believe that to him it's something very personal, and it's something that we've also taken up as JKUSA as much as possible. Probably I'm not the best person to reply to WhatsApp text. That is a weakness I've had from first year. But whenever I get somebody desperate, I will just take my time to listen. I usually take some time to walk around these halls at night, and I find people sleeping in the TV rooms, and I do not have rooms to offer them every time. But for some of these people, I'll just listen and refer them to the Dean of Students. There might not be much resources, but some of these people just want somebody to listen. So, yes.
So are you pushing to make sure, and most probably that's part of accommodation? There was a last time when the graduation, when the admission process was taking place, I was able to interact with a few parents who are talking about the accommodation facilities in school, that they are less, they are not there in adequate number. So in these JKUSA offices, are you pushing this to the administration?
Yes, we are.
And what is the response, maybe?
There hasn't been much response over the same, but it's not something that we have kept quiet about. Yet there is the issue of the sale of the few resources in the first place, and it's something that we should also discuss. It's diabolic. It is something that should never cross somebody's mind to take advantage of somebody who is already desperate. And so the few resources that are there, we first want these resources to be used, because you can imagine a situation whereby you go to the administration complaining that hostels are few, and then they give us data of some of these people are selling hostels. So for one, we need to first use the few resources that we have prudently. But once we are done with that, we are also pushing the administration in every university management board we've had. We've spoken about the issue of the accommodation, and it's not something that we'll keep quiet about.
And also the issue of bursaries. And then there's this part of the school fees for the students. Most of the students have been complaining about the fee hike.
The increment, yes.
The increment of the fees. Have you raised the concerns, and what is the response?
It's like 1 week ago. And what we are doing, we have given the administration an ultimatum. We have told them to act. We have not asked them. We have told them to act. We'll leave it at that.
Okay, so you can assure the students that you're pushing this to the administration?
Either way, we have not told them. We have not even asked them. We have not requested them.
You demanded?
We have demanded.
Right. That is good. So what is the last thing that you'd like to tell students in JKUAT? And
I believe that the most pertinent issue, the one that we need to deal with today, is the issue of the town hall that we shall be having. At first, we did not have much information as students over who is holding it, where specifically in the school it was being held, and such kinds of issues. But to all students of JKUAT, turn up in large numbers. Do not let anyone restrict you from speaking. Today is our day. You are welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much for tuning in from the start till the end. And there are so many issues that have been raised that are unanswered, that need specific people. For example, the president himself, to explain some of the parts that students are in quest for. So we are ending there, and before anything else, make sure you hit the subscription button of Top Notch Media. My name is Brian Odhiambo. See you till next time.